Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Today, I'm honored once again to speak to Dr. Will Morawits. He's an adjunct professor of political science at Texas State University. For 3 years, he was a police officer for the city of San Marcos, Texas, having graduated top cadet from the Basic Training Academy of the University of Texas at Austin, my alma mater. He holds a Master of Arts in Political Science from Texas State University and a PhD in Public Policy and Administration from Walden University. He is a native of Uvalde, Texas. Senor Moravits, welcome to Politics Done Right once again. How are you doing today?
Very well, sir. Thank you for having me again.
Well, absolutely. I think the last time you were on, we were discussing, I don't remember if we were discussing gun controls or what, but you came from the conservative point of view. And of course, I come from a very progressive point of view. But one of the things that we always stressed and the mutual respect comes from that we believe everyone has a right to their opinion, have a right to their speech, and one should not be penalized on either side or on any side for what they believe in. You contacted me recently and said, guess what, Egberto? I think we have something to talk about. Cancel has hit me. Tell me your story.
Well, when we had our first conversation on your show, I was promoting my book that came out last February, The Blue Divide, Policing and Race in America. And we had a lot of discussions about that. And if you remember at the end of our conversation, I mentioned to you that oftentimes I show in my classes, when we talk about this issue, I show the old Chris Rock video, How Not to Get Ass Beat by Police, from the old Chris Rock show that he had. I don't know how many years ago it's been now. It's been a while. And I show that because for a couple reasons. He's funny, right? Laughter. I think people remember things better when they're laughing. And even though it is funny, and at the end it gets a little bit comical, for those, that have seen it, I'm talking about where it starts talking about, a mad, angry woman, don't drive with a mad, angry woman because you never know what she'll say when you get pulled over. But leading up to that, there's some really good tips, be polite, respectful, hands on the wheel, just different things. And I show it to him just in the sense for the classroom to kind of laugh, but also to kind of bring down the level of seriousness, kind of add some levity to the situation. But I do think it's a good video for them to kind of understand. And you wrote about that, I think, was it the Daily Kos? I think
right.
And somebody in my former employer, St. Philip's College, some employee, I'm not sure if they were an administration or what, but an employee brought it to the attention of the college that I was showing this video, and also that I was calling myself professor with a little p, and that I don't have that rank. And I try to explain to them, I got called into a meeting with HR and one of the vice presidents about your article. And for about a week there, I wasn't sure if they were going to renew my contract because they have to let you know by the end of March. And this was middle of March when this happened last year. And they did. And basically what they told me is make sure you don't put yourself off as a professor. I'm an instructor. So even though I have a PhD, and I explained to them that Texas State, where I worked since 2018, everybody gets called professor in common language, right? You don't make that distinction. You do in rank. For those who aren't familiar with how the college system works, you have instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and full professor. And that's just your rank. But everybody, the students, you just say, hey, professor, that kind of thing. But the main issue was that I was showing this video in class. And they kind of were saying, did you get permission to show it? Is this something appropriate? And I was like, and my response was, well, these are college students. Black Lives Matter, police brutality are in the curriculum that this college chose for my class, or approved, rather, I should say that the professors chose the curriculum, but it's approved by the college. And so yeah, I think it is appropriate and what have you. And so they basically left it as, just be careful what you teach. And then doing my rounds with the promotion of the book, I got to know the national spokeswoman for the National Police Association. And in August, they had a booth at CPAC in Dallas. CPAC, of course, is a conservative political action conference. And they had a booth there, and they invited me to sit with them at the booth, um, and sell my book and just kind of help them promote the National Police Association, and which is, a nonprofit, just kind of help out, police in various types of charitable ways and promoting good policing and things like that. And I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it'd be a great experience. I'd never been to CPAC, never thought I would go. I just, wanted to go and visit. And in the course of those 2 or 3 days that I was there, I took a couple of pictures with people. One that I was very proud of, I met Steve Williford, who those that follow mass shootings may remember. He was the Sutherland Springs man who stopped the shooting at the church in Sutherland Springs, where 26 people were murdered. And I put him up on my Facebook, right? And one of my colleagues is a friend of mine on Facebook, and she saw it. And when I went to work a few days later, another employee said, "Hey, be careful around this person, because this is what she texted me about you." And she showed it to me, and she was basically saying that I needed to be pushed out of the college because my views threaten democracy, that CPAC is a racist organization that promotes, racial purity and anti-democratic views. And the irony, of course, here, one of the things, the text message, and I was able to take pictures of these, mentioned that Viktor Orban spoke at CPAC, and he did. And the irony is, I didn't know who this person was. I mean, I know now he's the president or prime minister or something of Hungary, but I had no idea, or Turkey, Hungary, I had no idea who he was. But because I attended as a guest, I kind of got associated with him in that particular context. So I took those pictures and I kind of put them on my back pocket just in case something ever came up. And then a few months pass. I'm getting, again, during this time, I'm getting excellent evaluations of my teaching, all that kind of good stuff from my mentor and from my department chair. And then in February, I get called in for a meeting with HR and a vice president. And they tell me right away, "There's been a complaint about you from a student. We don't know what the complaint is, but you're going to be put on paid administrative leave." And I was like, "Okay, well, can you tell me more?" He's like, "No, the investigation should take about 2 weeks. You're going to get paid. You'll need to turn in your badge and your keys." And I was like, "Okay, when am I going to find out what the complaint is?" They said, "Probably by the end of the week or on Monday." And I said, "Okay." And I was told, I was like, "Okay, well, I need to go get some stuff from my office, and I'll bring the badge down to you," because I didn't have my ID badge on me at the time. And they said, "Okay, well, I forget the sergeant's name, but the sergeant in the police department there for St. Philip's College escorted me." And we're walking out of the room, and I stop and I turn to him and I say, "Excuse me, sir, is this really necessary?" I said, "I'm a former police officer. I'm not going to cause any problems. I'm just going to run up to my office, grab my bag, and leave." And he said, "Well, I'll follow you at a distance." And I said, "Okay, that's cool with me." And so I go upstairs to my office, and it's locked. And so I unlock it. I get in there, and I'm gathering my things real quick. And then all of a sudden the door opens, and it's the police officer who had unlocked with the master key to unlock my door. And I was kind of shocked because he said, he's going to follow at a distance. And then he follows me out very close by. And I kind of, under my breath was like, "So much for following at a distance." Because it was embarrassing, because everybody in my department's kind of looking around like, why are they escorting Moravits out, with a police officer? So I leave, and I find out the complaint is from a student in one of my small classes. It was for political science majors. And she was claiming that I had made very discriminatory and disparaging marks against the LGBTQ community, particular transgender people. And then a subsequent conversation that I'd actually called or said that this is why we need police brutality. And if you remember from our conversation, the last thing I would go out and say is, yeah, we need more police brutality.
Right.
And so this was, again, the February 9th is when it started. So very early in February, March 27th, I still had been on paid leave. So the 2 weeks turned into over a month. I had not been questioned yet by investigators. And I was notified that my contract would not be renewed and that I would stay on paid leave through the rest of the semester. Now, mind you, I had an extra class that was going to start at the 8-week mark that I didn't get paid for because I didn't start it. So that was about $3,400 right off the bat that I was losing. I had 5 classes scheduled for the summer. That's another over $20,000. So right off the bat, I'm like, well, that's $24,000 I've lost just like that. And they finally did interview me. And I explained to them that none of this was true. I had simply given the alternative viewpoint to gender affirming care, right? Because like we mentioned, I may be conservative, but I don't want my students to only hear the conservative viewpoint. I want to hear both. And so we talked about in the context of how culture is changing with the transgender movement. Because you remember 10 years ago, nobody talked like this, with the pronouns and things. It was very new. It really started after Obergefell versus Hodges when the same-sex marriage case became nationalized, where all states had to recognize same-sex marriages, when it really kind of hit fast forward on the trans movement. And I was just saying that, there's people who question whether or not biological males who have transitioned should compete in sports against biological women. I was like, there are people who have gone through the surgery and have now regretted it. And I was just pointing those things out. And I even mentioned, I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm just saying, but it didn't matter. Since the non-renewal, I have discovered I have 3 affidavits from students in the class, one a conservative, one a libertarian, black male, by the way. And that was, because of the whole police brutality accusation. And then one of them, a liberal student. And all 3 of them say that she's lying and that I was very respectful in class and just gave both sides of the issue. So I have that signed, notarized proof. One of these 3 individuals was interviewed by investigators at the college. So they knew back in February that the claims were false, but they still went ahead and got rid of me. I do have counsel, the Academic Freedom Alliance, an organization of professors and other individuals in higher ed from all different, political ideological backgrounds, are financing this lawyer. It's Michael Allen of the Allen Harris law firm in New England. And we've been trying to do mediation. That has not been very successful. So we are preparing a lawsuit for violation of protected speech and civil rights. Can't really speak much more on that because legal restrictions. But you'll actually I think get a kick out of this next part. So we had appealed the decision, and then once they were like, okay, they might be filing a lawsuit, their attorney said, okay, we're going to put the appeal on hold, and we're going to try to settle this outside of court. And this was in late April, early May that we started to try to do this mediation. And they kind of jerked me around left and right. But one of the things they made very clear to my attorney was reinstatement was not going to be an option. So at that point, I decided, okay, well, if reinstatement's not an option, I might as well go clean out my office, And so a nice lady from HR down at the district office, because for those of you not familiar with San Antonio, Alamo Colleges is 5 community colleges, and they're run by the same district office. And I was going to meet at my office in St. Philip's College at 11:30 on a Wednesday, 2 weeks ago yesterday. And I was going to meet with a lady from HR, and I was going to pack up my things and go. On my way down there was a concern, some kind of miscommunication about the process. And she's saying, they're going to have to pack up your stuff and take it to the district office. And I said, I don't really want them to do that. I don't know who's going to be packing my things. It's my belongings. I'd like to do it myself. I don't give consent. I'm already on my way and what have you. I had business in the area beforehand. So I get down to the parking lot and I text the HR lady and I say, hey, I'm here. Is there any way I can get my stuff? I just want to move on with my life and get my things. And I live 30 miles from the college, so I didn't want to have to drive another 60 miles round trip when I'm already there. So she's like, well, let me get a hold of the VP and just hang tight. We'll try to get this situated. And so I'm sitting there talking to a friend of mine who's a faculty member. And then the HR lady calls me back and says, hey, I'm still trying to get a hold of the VP. Just hang tight. See if there's a police officer or somebody that might be able to let you in the room. And I was like, okay, well, look, I'll wait around for a few minutes and then I will, I'm thinking if I don't hear from you, I'll leave. So I go upstairs with my friend who's a faculty member, and there's 4 police officers waiting for me. And 3 of them surround me, one of them out in the hallway. And they're basically saying you have no right to be here. You need to leave campus. And I try to explain them again. One of them was a sergeant again. And I reminded him, I'm an ex-cop. This is during police week, Roberto. I'm actually wearing a police hat at the time. It's a 9/11 hat from NYPD for the 23 officers killed. And I tell him, I was like, look, you have no legal authority to remove me from a public space and a public building, especially when I'm here at the invitation of HR and a colleague, or now, a former colleague. And we kind of go back and forth and they're saying, no, sir. And I was like, look, you have no right to my property. I'm here to get my stuff. I'm waiting on a call from HR. And it was just this back and forth. And eventually they one of the vice presidents did arrive and say, you're not getting your things and you're going to have to go down. So they forced me back off campus and I had to go pick them up, down the road of office, miles and whatever. And they watched me the whole time. And just like I expected, they didn't pack up everything. So I had to get them to mail me some more stuff later and, whatever. It just seemed like overkill. And my lawyer actually commented, as like, well, at least now you know why some people think cops are dicks. And I was like, yeah, I get it. They're just doing their job, but it was kind of like,
wait a minute. I want to interject right there. As I'm listening to you, right? You're a former police officer, and by the way, actually, you know what? I want to wait to end this story before I go further. So finish telling me the conclusion. So let's go and then I'll.
Well, so I went and I met with the lady at HR down at very nice lady, and she was apologetic for all the confusion. I said, what was the reasoning for the police to show up like I'm some kind of, threat or something? And she's like, I don't know, it was miscommunication, whatever. And so she was very, very nice, very helpful, and got my stuff and I left. And now we thought we had a mediation date that didn't work out. Some other things happened back and forth between the attorney and my attorney that I don't want to get into, but it got to the point now where we're kind of putting a hold on the mediation thing and probably going to be looking at filing an official complaint soon. But like I said, because of that, all the rules about legality, I can't really discuss more details about that just yet. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. I don't know, what's going to happen with my future, my career. I don't know if I have to, what my prospects would be if I'm going to have to uproot my entire family and move somewhere to find a new job. Because as you well know, there's not a lot. I mean, getting into higher ed is not the easiest thing in the world. There's just not a lot of jobs out there. And, Alamo Colleges makes up 5 of, I think, 17 colleges in driving distance from where I am. And then you look at a place like University of Texas, that's one of the top schools in the country. It's very difficult to break in, especially for someone like me who I got into higher ed in my late 30s. So I didn't, I'm kind of behind the curve. I don't have like a long history at my age of articles I've written and things. This is my second career or third career, really, if you consider I taught at the high school level.
But you're also an author. You're also an author.
Yeah. The book the book that started all is your article that got
my article got you I mean, my article got you a notoriety, brother. But let
Yeah,
me,
it got me infamous at college, so thank you. That
yes. But let me
but
just say, okay.
okay, so that's
I think,
basically the story.
yeah, this is important. First of all, I want to ask you, and I'm gonna be straight up with the answer. Is there some kind of a thing with regards to demeanor or whatever that I'm missing here, where you always come across to me very circumspect, nice, good attitude, etc. Is there anything different how you came across in class when you were discussing transgender and all these issues, which we probably disagree on? Were you at least doing it from a respectful form, or did you do it like some of the what I will call the wackos on the right? Because it is legitimate to have to say in the transgender issue, I just don't understand guys who become women and are going to play sports and then be educated about it. That is something that we can discuss, but we have to open the door to have discussion. Were you
Right.
somehow?
Actually, the interesting thing is there were two occasions where the student said I made disparaging remarks. Both occasions were me answering a student question, a different student. So the first question, had to deal with a student. We were talking about the different responses to COVID and how red states reacted differently than blue states about, reopening and going back to school and things like that, right? And I mentioned a study, and I can find it. I have to go find it again, but I've read it. It's a study that shows that there's a correlation between being conservative and being less risk averse. And so they're making the argument that when you look at jobs that have a high risk of injury or death, like loggers, oil workers, military, police, fire, or whatever, that there's a disproportionate number of conservative minded or libertarian minded people in those professions. And so I was just making, maybe there's something to be said that the red states being more conservative or more willing to risk the COVID protocols.
Right.
And one student said, yeah, liberals tend to be more shy. And I was like, no, not really. I was like, we talked about, how whether it be the civil rights movement, whether it be the gay pride movement, this is the day one of Gay Pride Month. I just kind of use that as an example that these people, I would not consider them shy. They're very open about who they are and what they do. And the student kind of brought up the LGBTQ movement, and I just was making the comment that they're very expressive about who they are. I said you can look at a gay pride parade and see that they are not ashamed of who
Not
they
shy.
are. And
Absolutely, they shouldn't be. Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of like where the conversation started. Another student said, well, it was a little bit older, and he made the comment, I don't understand all this language with the pronouns and stuff. Right? He was in his mid-20s, and I tried to explain to him kind of the progression and culture of how this has changed in the past 8 to 10 years. And when we got to talking about sports, I didn't even give my opinions. I was just telling people there's a swimmer named Riley Gaines who tied Leah Thomas, the Penn State swimmer who ended up becoming national champion. And Riley says that they took the trophy from her against Leah for the photo op. And then now she's going around fighting back and whatever. And I just mentioned some groups, and this particular student said, you are making a moral judgment. And I was like, no, this is my opinion. In fact, the irony of all this, Egberto, is that what I was telling the class were things that I had learned from a colleague of mine who is a member of the community and was letting me read books from the perspective of TERFs, right? Transgender radical feminists. It was like an eye-opening experience, learning about I was told to go Google LGB, drop the T, right? And you've got on Twitter, the Gays Against Groomers Twitter page, and you've got Fist and Wolf, which are lesbian feminist movements that are against the transgender kind of part of the LGBT. And I was basically just trying to educate them that there are these other views out there. And they weren't even necessarily my views, right? I was just basically repeating things that I'd been reading with my colleague. So no, it definitely was not something that I was like, oh, LGBT bad or anything like that. I mean, I have two former students of mine from high school that I love dearly that are female to male transitioners, and I never treated them any differently. And I have, like I said, I have 3 affidavits from students backing up what I just told you, that I was never demeaning to anybody and very respectful and all that.
I get that. And again, the thing about it is I don't want anybody who talks to me catering whatever they're saying because they know that I'm this progressive guy. I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe in any of that. I believe in I can stand up on, when I say I'm talking about, I think the liberal movement, the progressive movement can stand up on what they believe in. And you as a conservative have to stand up on what you believe in. And then we can sit down and talk and argue points, etc. The reason I really wanted you on as well is when you sent me that email and said you think you've been, you have been unjustly relieved for something that you didn't do. I think I am not in agreement with that. If you have a conservative idea that you put out to your students, as long as you're not judging your student and grading them based on the things that you're saying, there's absolutely no reason for them to get rid of you for your job. Just like there is no reason for, I'm gonna tease you here, your buddy DeSantis to do what he is doing in Florida as far as penalizing teachers as they are in Florida for teaching Black issues, gay issues, and all these other things. I believe in the free expression of ideas. And I hope that in this happening to you as well, you see the merit in all of us being able to be free to express these things.
Yeah, because I think especially at the collegiate level, you should be challenged when you go to college.
Yes.
And you should. I mean, I remember as a freshman sitting in class in the 1996 and having my small little world that growing up in Uvalde and realizing that there's a whole bunch of different perspectives out there from what I experienced. And that's how you grow and how you get better. And I do try the best I can to present the progressive, the conservative, and the moderate in discussions. And one of the things I tell my students at the beginning of every class is I will argue against you, sometimes even if I agree with you, just to get you to think if other students are not jumping in, because I want the students to debate and I can facilitate. But sometimes, especially because most of the classes I teach are a lot of freshmen and they're big classes, like at Texas State. Sometimes kids, they're still a little nervous about speaking out in a group of 100 and something people and whatever. So sometimes I have to jump in. And I just tell them, I was like, look, most students your age lean left anyway. So I am going to just naturally probably argue the conservative side more often. But I have, one of my very conservative vocal students, one that actually gave the affidavit to me, I've spanked him down a couple times in class for arguments because I wanted him to think about from a different perspective. That's why I read stuff by you and I read the Salon and Vox and different things, because I don't want to I want to be able to offer my students as much context and nuance as possible. That's why I disagree with some of my conservative friends that are like, CRT shouldn't be taught in college. It's and I was like, well, why not? It's a legitimate, critical theory is a legitimate thing. And if you're going to say, I don't want my kids learning about the 1619 Project or whatever, then how can you go around and, because that's indoctrination, then how can you say that, if I get up there and all I did was teach the conservative view, how is that not indoctrination?
Exactly.
Right? You've got to be able to give as much sides and things like that. And so I'm very much in agreement with you there.
Well, let me tell you this, and like I said, I want to before we close out. There's another thing that you said that really touched me, and that is how you felt when you were going to pick up your things, and how you're a cop, or you're a former cop, and how you felt with that guy behind you, how you felt with 4 cops surrounding you, how you felt with not looking through these other cops, not seeing through your eyes, these other cops not even giving you the time of day to express yourself. Do you see in a lot of ways how how those who in the presence of cops, how they actually feel and why they act the way they do many times. And you're a white guy, and you have to admit that you're a white guy.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, 3 of the 4 cops were minorities.
Oh, well, maybe they were slapping. No, I'm kidding. Actually, let me just tell you something about the cops.
No,
wait, hold on, Bill. I want to say something first. I want to say something first. In as much as these were minority cops, I don't distinguish white cops from black cops because it's an institution that you've been there and you pretty much know that. Now, when it comes to if a cop makes a mistake, you know who's going to go down first. And if you look at the stats, you know who will go down first. But you felt that and I'm saying, think about those other people who lived that. And again, you were a cop. So,
well, because I was a cop, I was able to, I wasn't angry at them. I wasn't, I didn't lose my cool because I knew how far I could probably push the issue before bad things happen.
Yes.
And again, I don't blame. Only 2 of the 4 actually spoke to me. The other 2 were kind of in the, just there, I guess. And my only problem is I get they were just doing their job. That the vice president was saying he's not to be here, but I could definitely see the wheels turning when I told the sergeant, "Show me the legal power you have to remove me." And HR invited me down here because then he got on the phone and was like, "Okay, wait a minute." And that was good because sometimes when you see these viral videos when they challenge police, sometimes the cops get all pissed off, and they didn't. They were very professional. But I kind of knew from my experience how far I could push the envelope, and I wasn't being disrespectful. I was being a little bit, firm, but I was being professional because you'll see. I saw a video. Same guy did it in 2 different public buildings recently. He went in and was filming people in a government building, and the people were like, "No, you can't film in here," whatever. And the cop showed up, and the first cop was like, "Give me that camera. You can't be in here," whatever. And he was saying, "No, I can." He was signing the law. He did it in another building, and the cop knew the law and told the employee, "Sorry, it's a public place. I can't stop him from filming. He's not breaking the law. There's nothing I can do." And I think that's kind of a learning point that for a lot of cops in that situation is, be sure that you have the authority to do what you're doing, and don't let your personal feelings of somebody, cloud your judgment. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely was aware of that. That's why I kind of felt like, hey, I've kind of been treating like a criminal when I wasn't doing anything wrong, yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, and I think that's and look, I hope, first of all, I'm glad there are others that are going to see this, quite a few that are going to see this video and listen to the podcast and listen to your experience. But I also hope that that particular part of this experience that you had, I hope you can write about it. I'm going to have this out there as well, because I think it's not only a learning experience for the people who the police are going to be trying to engage, but also for police officers coming from another police officer and how you felt when you were surrounded by them, But anyway, give me a closer because we kind of went a little bit over, but I always like talking to you. So give me a quick closer.
Yeah. Well, I just would say for those of you listening out there that if we want our education system to be a top-notch education system, if we want the country to be able to move forward and get along and actually have progress, we need to be able to sit down and have these discussions honestly and openly and not silence views. I believe this country is a marketplace of ideas. And if you're not going to allow certain ideas into the marketplace, that's censorship. The way to defeat bad ideas is with better ideas. And I think that's what we should move forward to at all levels of education, but especially in higher ed.
Dr. Will Morawits, thank you so kindly for spending some time here at Politics Done Right. And I wish you well. And like I said, I wish you well. They need to give you your job back.
Well, I appreciate you having me on to tell my story, Alberto. I really do.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.